Did you know? Imagine standing at a crossroads, faced with a monumental decision that could change the course of history. All eyes are on you, and every choice carries irreversible consequences. What would you do? Pontius Pilate, the infamous Roman governor, found himself in such a pivotal moment when he was tasked with deciding the fate of Jesus. But was Pilate truly a heartless villain? Or was he a victim of overwhelming political and social pressure? And what happened afterward, when he faced the consequences of his decisions? From the haunting dream of Claudia Procula, Pilate's wife, who warned him of Jesus' innocence, to the symbolic act of washing his hands before the crowd, Pilate's story is more than a tale of power and principle. It unveils a profound struggle between justice and authority, shrouded in unresolved mysteries. His tragic death, whether through despair-driven suicide or a search for redemption, remains a puzzle that has baffled historians and theologians for centuries. Today, we will delve into the enigmas surrounding Pilate's story together. I promise you'll gain valuable insights and draw meaningful lessons for yourself. If you find this content helpful, please subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave your thoughts in the comments below to encourage me to create more enriching content. Now, let's dive in. Pontius Pilate, a prominent name in biblical history, is remembered as the man who made the fateful decision in the trial of Jesus. As the Roman governor of Judea from AD 26 to 36, Pilate was tasked with maintaining order in a region notorious for its religious and political tensions. Beneath the mantle of power, however, he was a man torn between loyalty to Rome and the tumultuous demands of a frenzied crowd calling for the death of someone he knew to be innocent. Judea during Pilate's tenure was a land in turmoil, where tensions between Roman authorities and the Jewish people were at a boiling point. Known for his harsh governance, Pilate had previously ordered Roman symbols to be displayed in Jerusalem, an act seen as a grave insult to Jewish religious traditions, and had redirected temple funds to build aqueducts, provoking widespread protests. Yet, it was the trial of Jesus that cemented Pilate's name in history, sparking debates that persist to this day. The trial occurred during Passover, a particularly volatile time in Jerusalem when thousands of Jewish pilgrims gathered in the city. Jesus, a preacher with immense influence, had been accused by Jewish religious leaders of blasphemy for claiming to be the Son of God. Additionally, they charged him with inciting rebellion against Rome, a crime punishable by death, without the authority to execute. The Jewish leaders brought Jesus to Pontius Pilate, the ultimate arbiter of his fate. When confronted with Jesus, Pilate appeared skeptical of the charges. In a conversation recorded in the scriptures, Pilate asked, "Are you the king of the Jews?" John 18 verse 33. Jesus' composed demeanor and profound responses seemed to convince Pilate that he was no ordinary criminal. The Gospels recount Pilate's repeated attempts to release Jesus, but the crowd's demands grew increasingly hostile. The tipping point came when they shouted, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar," John 19 verse 12, implying that Pilate risked being accused of treason against the Roman Empire if he did not authorize the execution. To absolve himself of responsibility, Pilate performed a symbolic act. He washed his hands before the crowd, declaring, "I am innocent of this man's blood," Matthew 27 verse 24. Yet, he ultimately gave in, ordering the crucifixion of Jesus. From that moment, Pontius Pilate's name became irrevocably tied to the most significant event in Christian history, the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Pilate's story is not merely a personal tragedy, but also a profound lesson about courage and truth. Was he a man coerced by circumstances, or a symbol of reprehensible compromise? That question continues to resonate through the ages. leaving generations to ponder the weight of his decisions. The crucifixion of Jesus stands as a pivotal moment in his mission to redeem humanity, and Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea, became the central figure in the trial and crucifixion of Jesus. This event, steeped in controversy, offers profound lessons on power, conscience, and responsibility. How could a man as powerful as Pilate allow himself to be swept away by political pressures and the demands of a mob, ultimately becoming a symbol of weakness and injustice? Pontius Pilate, a figure of contradiction, played a crucial role in condemning Jesus to crucifixion, even though he himself found no fault in him. This role is not only documented in the Gospels, but also mentioned by historians such as Josephus and Philo, highlighting Pilate as not just a witness to history, but as a decision-maker in an event that shaped religion and humanity. When Jesus was arrested, Jewish leaders brought him to Pilate, accusing him of blasphemy and inciting rebellion. Under Roman law, only the authorities had the power to impose the death penalty, so they sought Pilate's final judgment. Yet, the task was anything but straightforward. After questioning Jesus, Pilate declared, "I find no basis for a charge against this man," John 18 verse 38. However, the Jewish leaders persisted, accusing Jesus of claiming to be a king, a direct threat to Caesar's authority, Luke 23 verse 2. Faced with mounting pressure from the crowd and Jewish leaders, Pilate sought to avoid responsibility. He offered to release Jesus as part of the Passover amnesty tradition, but the crowd demanded Barabbas, a notorious criminal. Instead, Matthew 27 verses 15 to 26. Even his wife, Claudia Procula, warned him after a troubling dream to have nothing to do with that righteous man, Matthew 27 verse 19, but her plea was ignored. Ultimately, Pilate symbolically washed his hands before the crowd, claiming, "I am innocent of this man's blood," and ordered Jesus to be crucified, Matthew 27 verse 24. What sealed Pilate's legacy in the death of Jesus was his final decision. Under intense pressure and the looming threat of unrest, Pilate chose to concede rather than risk a riot. His act of hand-washing, intended to absolve himself of responsibility, became one of history's most iconic images, a symbol of compromise and evasion. Despite this gesture, history remembers Pilate as the one who authorized the execution of Jesus. His actions not only weighed heavily on his conscience, but also drew centuries of criticism, especially from theologians and Christian believers. Supernatural events following Jesus' death, such as darkness covering the land and the temple veil being torn in two, Matthew 27 verses 45 to 51, only deepened Pilate's burden of guilt. Pontius Pilate was not a malicious man but a leader caught in the grip of circumstance. His decisions were shaped by political pressure, the threat of revolt during Passover, and the fear of losing his position under Roman scrutiny. Pilate knew that a rebellion could result in his dismissal. Although he did not directly participate in the crucifixion, Pilate remains culpable as the one who ultimately authorized it. His actions stand as a testament to how power without courage can lead to injustice, leaving a profound impact on both history and human spirituality. Claudia Procula, the wife of Pontius Pilate, makes only a brief appearance in the Gospels, yet her dream carries profound symbolic weight in the story of Jesus' trial. According to Matthew 27 verse 19, while Pilate was seated on the judgment seat, Claudia sent him a warning, "Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much in a dream because of him today." But what was the nature of this dream? And why does it hold such significance? In the social and religious context of the time, dreams were often viewed as a means of divine communication. Claudia, a non-Jew, likely knew little about Jesus, yet her dream conveyed a sense of fear and urgent warning. compelling her to intervene in the trial. Some theologians interpret this as a divine attempt to dissuade Pilate from participating in the crucifixion of the Savior. This introduces a mystical element to the narrative, where even an outsider like Claudia could sense the profound spiritual importance of Jesus. On the eve of Pilate's historic decision, Claudia experienced a haunting dream. She sent an urgent message to Pilate during the trial, pleading, "Do not have anything to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much because of him in a dream." Matthew 27 verse 19. Her warning not only highlights Claudia's lesser-known role in the story, but also raises profound questions about divine intervention, morality, and responsibility. Claudia's dream stands as one of the most enigmatic elements in the Passion narrative. The Bible does not elaborate on the dream's content, but it is described as intense enough to cause her great distress. This adds a supernatural layer to the story, emphasizing that the events unfolding were not merely historical but part of a larger divine plan. Despite Claudia's warning, Pilate's decision remained unchanged. Although he recognized Jesus' innocence, John 18 verse 38, and was deeply conflicted under the weight of the crowd's demands, Pilate lacked the courage to act on his conscience. Claudia's dream, while unable to alter the outcome, underscores Pilate's weakness and internal turmoil. His actions reflect not just political compromise, but also a refusal to heed the voice of conscience, embodied in his wife's plea. Why did Claudia have this dream? For centuries, theologians have debated its origin and meaning. A common interpretation is that God chose her, a Gentile, to deliver a clear warning, highlighting that even those outside the Jewish faith recognized Jesus' innocence and divine nature. Others view the dream as a test for Pilate, whether he would listen to his conscience, reinforced by his wife's dream, or succumb to external pressures. Although divine and cautionary in nature, Claudia's dream was not enough to sway Pilate's ultimate decision. Despite her warning, Pilate chose to yield to the Jewish leaders and the shouting crowd, ultimately ordering Jesus' crucifixion. Nevertheless, Claudia's message reveals another dimension to the narrative: Pilate's inner struggle. Her dream served as a metaphorical voice of conscience, cautioning him about the grave consequences of his actions. In the context of the Passion story, Claudia Procula's dream is not merely a minor detail but a symbolic moment. It represents the tension between justice and political expediency, between truth and power. Her dream is even seen as an indirect testimony to Jesus' innocence, coming from someone entirely outside the political and religious schemes surrounding the trial. In some Christian traditions, Claudia is venerated as a symbol of conscience and integrity. Despite her warning failing to alter history, that dream still resonates through the centuries, reminding us that warnings can come from the most unexpected sources and that poor choices can have lasting consequences. Pilate, though a figure of power, ignored that warning and became a symbol of weakness under pressure, while Claudia remains a beacon of reason and moral clarity amid chaos. After ordering the crucifixion of Jesus, Pontius Pilate could not escape the weight of guilt and psychological torment, though he had attempted to wash his hands before the crowd to declare his innocence. That symbolic act could not absolve him of the responsibility he bore. The crucifixion of Jesus was not merely a political decision, but one that left a profound impact on Pilate's conscience. According to Christian traditions and extra-biblical accounts, Pilate was haunted by memories of the trial and Jesus' words, particularly his prayer, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Luke 23 verse 34. These words, aimed not only at the crowd, but also resonating deeply within Pilate, served as an unrelenting reminder of his guilt, one he could not escape. Following Jesus' death, Pilate faced mounting pressure from both the Roman authorities and the anger of the Jewish people. Historical sources such as Flavius Josephus and Philo of Alexandria depict him as a brutal governor whose actions frequently incited uprisings. Ultimately, he was recalled to Rome to answer for his harsh suppression of a Samaritan revolt. Christian tradition suggests that Pilate lived in isolation and anguish, with some accounts claiming he took his own life. Unable to bear the burden of his guilt, Claudia Procula, Pilate's wife, is said in Christian traditions to have endured recurring nightmares after Jesus' death. The dream she had shared with Pilate, warning him to have nothing to do with that righteous man, was not merely a premonition but became a psychological burden when her words were ignored. Some traditions suggest that driven by her remorse and conviction of Jesus' innocence, Claudia eventually converted to Christianity. In the Eastern Orthodox Church, Claudia is even venerated as a saint, recognized for her role in bearing witness to the righteousness of Jesus. Both Pilate and Claudia were drawn into the aftermath of this historic event in profoundly different ways. Pilate, a symbol of power but lacking the courage to stand for justice, lived in isolation and torment. Claudia, on the other hand, became a representation of conscience and spiritual awakening. Their story underscores that truth and justice, though denied, hold a timeless power, and decisions made under pressure can carry lasting consequences. Following the crucifixion of Jesus, Pilate's position became more precarious than ever. His harsh governance, insensitivity to local customs, and repeated conflicts with the Jewish people ultimately led to his recall to Rome and eventual dismissal. One of the key events that contributed to Pilate's downfall was his brutal suppression of the Samaritans on Mount Gerizim. According to the historian Flavius Josephus, a group of Samaritans had gathered on the mountain to search for relics believed to date back to the time of Moses. Fearing that this gathering might incite rebellion, Pilate ordered a violent crackdown, resulting in many deaths and arrests. This action sparked widespread outrage among the people and Jewish leaders, prompting Lucius Vitellius, the governor of Syria, to intervene and summon Pilate back to Rome to account for his actions. Pilate's tenure as governor of Judea, from AD 26 to 36, was marked by deep controversy. He faced constant religious tensions, such as introducing Roman symbols into Jerusalem and using temple funds to construct an aqueduct, actions that provoked significant protests. His rule was further marred by accusations of brutality and political ineptitude. Upon his return to Rome, Pilate faced charges from political rivals and the displeasure of Emperor Tiberius, who was frustrated by the persistent unrest in Judea. The death of Pontius Pilate, one of the most controversial figures in biblical and historical accounts, has been the subject of numerous legends and diverse narratives. As the man who ordered the crucifixion of Jesus, Pilate was not only an unwilling witness to a sacred event, but also a symbol of weakness and injustice. How, then, is his death described in historical records and religious traditions? Eusebius, a 4th century Christian historian, recorded that Pilate committed suicide during the reign of Emperor Caligula, driven to despair by his disgrace and the torment of his conscience after his decision to crucify Jesus. According to Eusebius, this act reflected a mind overwhelmed by guilt and unable to bear the weight of past mistakes. It marked a tragic end for a man who once held the power of life and death, but ultimately could not escape the consequences of his actions. In contrast, Eastern Orthodox tradition offers a different perspective on Pilate. Some accounts suggest that he repented and converted to Christianity, seeking forgiveness and redemption. This interpretation underscores the Christian theology of forgiveness, raising profound questions about humanity's capacity for atonement, no matter the gravity of one's sins. In some Orthodox communities, both Pilate and his wife, Claudia Procula, are viewed as individuals transformed by God's mercy. Medieval folklore added further layers to the story of Pilate's death. In the Golden Legend, Pilate is said to have been exiled to Gaul, modern-day France, where he lived in isolation before eventually taking his own life. According to legend, his body was thrown into a river as a symbolic punishment for his sins. These tales not only enriched the narrative of Pilate's life, but also reflected medieval perspectives on divine justice. Whether through historical accounts like those of Tacitus or through religious traditions, the death of Pilate remains shrouded in ambiguity, blending fact and myth. These narratives depict not just a tragic end, but a powerful reminder that authority, when devoid of conscience and ethics, inevitably leads to downfall. Pilate's death symbolizes the consequences of yielding to pressure and denying righteousness, offering a timeless lesson on responsibility and justice. Despite his position of power, Pontius Pilate became a symbol of weakness when he failed to stand for justice, choosing instead the safer path of preserving his status and authority. This decision not only determined the fate of Jesus, but also left lasting consequences for Pilate himself. The story of Pontius Pilate vividly illustrates the struggle between morality and pressure, between doing what is right and fearing the repercussions. As the highest authority in Judea during Jesus' trial, Pilate faced a decision that could alter history: to release an innocent man or to appease the crowd and protect his political interests. Yet, instead of choosing courage and integrity, he succumbed to pressure, offering a poignant lesson on weakness and the cost of poor decisions. Through Pilate's story, we can draw profound lessons that resonate across time. The first lesson is the necessity of courage in upholding what is right, especially under pressure. Pilate knew Jesus was innocent, even publicly declaring, "I find no fault in this man," John 18 verse 38. However, when confronted with the demands of Jewish leaders and the growing cries of the crowd, he lacked the bravery to act on his conviction. Instead, Pilate washed his hands before the people, symbolizing his abdication of responsibility, Matthew 27 verse 24. This act serves as a powerful reminder of human frailty when faced with the choice between justice and personal safety. The second lesson centers on the responsibility of those in power. As a Roman governor, Pilate held the authority to determine Jesus' fate. Yet, he allowed himself to be swayed by the crowd, leading to a decision he knew was unjust. With power comes great responsibility, and when leaders fail to wield it ethically, the consequences can be devastating. Pilate's story reminds us that inaction in the face of wrongdoing can be as harmful as the wrong action itself. The third lesson highlights the importance of clarity in leadership. Pilate's role was not only to maintain order, but also to uphold truth and justice. His capitulation not only damaged his personal honor, but also eroded trust in the political system. In any leadership role, a lack of clarity and courage can lead to far-reaching consequences, affecting both the individual and the community they serve. Additionally, Pilate's story serves as a warning about the pitfalls of compromise. Pilate attempted to appease the crowd by offering to release Jesus as part of the Passover custom. But when the crowd demanded Barabbas instead, he passively conceded. While compromise is sometimes necessary, when it comes at the cost of morality and truth, it leads only to devastating outcomes. Finally, this story underscores the crucial role of conscience in decision-making. Claudia Procula, Pilate's wife, sent him a warning based on a troubling dream, and the supernatural events following Jesus' death, Matthew 27 verses 45 to 51, seem to echo the voice of conscience, urging Pilate to reconsider his path. Yet Pilate ignored these warnings, prioritizing expediency over truth. Pilate's story leaves an enduring lesson: decisions made under pressure, when devoid of courage and ethics, can result in irreversible consequences. It reminds us that standing for justice and truth, no matter how difficult, is always the right course of action, as compromising with wrongdoing only leads to tragic outcomes. Pilate, despite his power, ultimately became a symbol of the failure of conscience when faced with pressure and responsibility. The story of Pontius Pilate, though over 2,000 years old, holds profound relevance in today's world, where individuals increasingly face conflicts between morality and societal pressure. Pilate is not merely a historical figure, but a symbol of the difficult choices that leaders and individuals alike may encounter. His decision to prioritize political safety over justice offers a timeless lesson on the value of integrity and courage. In a modern world filled with pressures from public opinion, social media, and political power, Pilate's story serves as a reminder that yielding to such forces can have lasting consequences, both personally and socially. Pilate gave in to the demands of the crowd, fearing political instability, but that act not only tarnished his personal honor, but also shaped the course of human history. This reflects the dilemmas faced by many today. Will we stand for what is right, even when it means opposing the majority? Moreover, Pilate's story emphasizes the importance of personal responsibility in decision-making. Despite his attempt to wash his hands and deny accountability, history forever links his name to the death of Jesus Christ. This serves as a warning for the modern era, where individuals often justify wrongful actions by citing workplace pressures or collective decisions. The narrative reinforces that everyone must bear responsibility for their actions, regardless of external pressures. With its core ethical values and timeless messages, Pilate's story continues to illuminate humanity's path, reminding us that truth and justice should never be sacrificed for convenience or fear. In an age where societal and media pressures grow increasingly powerful, Pilate's story warns against the dangers of yielding to the crowd without carefully considering what is right. Like Pilate, many modern leaders face immense pressure from interest groups or public opinion, often leading to decisions that conflict with their conscience. Pilate's symbolic act of washing his hands, an attempt to avoid responsibility, remains a cautionary tale about the consequences of indifference to injustice. Additionally, the story underscores the critical importance of courage in defending the truth, even when it lacks popular support. In a world rife with compromise and blurred lines between right and wrong, Pilate's narrative reminds us that unethical decisions can leave lasting scars, not only on individuals but also on communities. Beyond its ethical implications, Pilate's story provokes reflection on personal accountability in moral dilemmas. It reminds us that each person has the power to influence justice and truth, no matter their role in society. Pilate, despite his authority as a Roman governor, is remembered in history as a symbol of failure to stand for righteousness. This enduring lesson gives Pilate's story its significance, transcending time and offering guidance across generations. Pontius Pilate, a complex and controversial historical figure, was not only central to the trial of Jesus Christ, but also became a timeless symbol in art, culture, and theology. From the pages of the Bible, Pilate's story has inspired countless works of art, literature, and education, where he is portrayed as a man torn between power and conscience, political pressure and truth. Through these depictions, he serves as a reflection of the moral struggles humanity has faced throughout history. In art, Pilate is often depicted as a man caught between two forces: the justice he recognizes in Jesus' innocence and the pressure from the crowd and religious leaders. Renaissance paintings, such as Tintoretto's Christ Before Pilate, frequently capture his inner turmoil, showing a face weighed down by regret but hands rendered powerless. From the Middle Ages to modern times, Pilate appears in numerous works of art, from paintings and sculptures to theater and film. These portrayals not only recount his life, but also symbolize the ethical dilemmas people confront in making moral decisions. Culturally, Pilate has been immortalized in literary works such as The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov and The Gospel According to Jesus Christ by José Saramago. These authors reimagine Pilate as more than a Roman official. They present him as a symbol of the complexity of the human soul, a man who knows what is right but lacks the courage to act. In Easter plays worldwide, Pilate remains an essential character, often depicted as an unwilling witness to Christianity's greatest act of redemption. In theology and education, Pilate serves as a powerful teaching tool on ethics and responsibility. In classrooms and church sermons, he is frequently highlighted as an example of the consequences of yielding to pressure instead of standing for the truth. His act of washing his hands has become a widely recognized metaphor for evading responsibility and is often used to illustrate the failure of conscience when facing adversity. In summary, the story of Pontius Pilate is an enduring reminder of moral responsibility and the power of courage. From artistic masterpieces and literary works to theological discussions and educational lessons, Pilate transcends history to serve as a vivid example of the ethical values humanity must uphold. He reflects on the common failures in society, evading accountability and succumbing to pressure, and stands as a warning that we must always choose truth and justice, regardless of the circumstances. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope the information I shared was valuable to you. Stay tuned for more insightful content by subscribing to my channel and leaving a comment with topics you'd like me to cover. See you in the next video, and may God be with you. Please subscribe to our channel to enjoy more captivating Bible stories from us.